What did that kid in your school get expelled for? High school, senior year. He was the stereotypical computer geek pocket protector kid. Very smart, generally quiet, was nice but awkward. He somehow found a way to access the part of the school's storage network where teachers could save their files. He made copies of thousands of quizzes, tests, answer keys, etc. Lots were from his AP US history teacher, but I was told he had stuff from most teachers. He sold copies of answer keys and exams to kids. Eventually someone told the school administrators. They contacted the police, and while he was at school one day they went to his house with a warrant and confiscated his computers. Arrested him when he came home. Teachers were pissed. Every compromised test had to be remade. Hundreds of hours of work for his history teacher, who had to remake all his lesson materials for the year over again. They threatened him with the possibility of being prosecuted as an adult, that each file was its own felony, and he was looking at 1,000s of charges. This was ultimately to just get a plea deal, which was something like a lot of community service, expulsion from that school, and probation. I think if he made it through probation it would all end up sealed or something. He threw a hammer at a student, narrowly missing another student and lodging it in the wall. They'd been tossing plastic cutlery at him, and he'd had enough. Honestly, they were poking a sleeping bear because he'd made it clear from the day he arrived that he had some sort of mental condition that made him a compulsive liar, but in the terrifying way. Like he told me directly about how he murdered his own mother, a lady who regularly dropped him off at school so dull with a screwdriver. People at my school were very, very dumb, but he got expelled immediately. When I was a junior in high school, the senior prank that year was to steal all the science videos from the office, all VHS, and record porn onto them at various parts, then return the tapes. 4 years. Teachers would be putting on tapes about fossil fuels or mitochondria or crepuscular carnivores in 20 minutes in boom dick in an acid full volume. Science department finally gave up trying to find them all and just threw them all away. The year of the prank the student who organized it was expelled because someone spilled the beans. Wow. Smart of them to tape over it well into the video. If it came on right away the teacher would be right there to stop the tape. Gotta leave some time to let the teacher get comfortable. There was a kid in the school who was notorious for not showering. It was absolutely disgusting, but he didn't exactly have the best home life, so no one was really gonna say anything. One day, the kid sitting behind him decided to light the no-shower's greasy hair on fire. It went up like a fireball and the smell that ensued would make an onion cry. Needless to say, the kid with the lighter didn't make it through the rest of the day. A kid in my high school brought an airsoft gun in his truck on the one day of the year that my school decided to perform a modified lockdown, which is really just a different way of saying we're searching your shit for drugs. So he gets called outside to unlock his car so that the police can further analyze this obviously fake, see-through plastic toy gun, and what do? Payday, fellas. We got exactly what we were looking for. Poor kid got expelled. I will never forget sitting in chemistry with the windows open at the front of the school when he drove by in his truck screaming FCK High School's name. His adopted mom was a 7th grade teacher. Doesn't really mean anything, but just an interesting bit of information. That's so dumb. Poor guy didn't even bring it inside. Who cares if it's on school property? I'd understand if it was black and had the orange tip removed, but nope. Yet he was pissed. Our school had almost no drug use and mostly complacent kids, so I guess they just felt they needed to justify putting us on lockdown to look for illegal stuff. Went to an all-guys Catholic high school. One of the teachers was trying to become a deacon or something and had to videotape himself hosting a service. He taught religion, so he used a class period to take his students to the chapel and record his service. He had to go back to the classroom for something and one of the kids got up and began desecrating everything. Mock blowjobs of the candles, humping the crucifix, fake sermons, the whole 9 yards. The kid returns to his seat before the teacher ever gets back and all the students don't say anything. The camera was rolling the whole time. Okay, so we were in the middle of class that took place on the 5th floor of our school, and there was this kid who in the middle of class stands up, goes to the window, proceeds to open it and jumps off. The entire class watched his terror, and the teacher just stood there for a second in disbelief of what she had just witnessed. In reality, the kid jumped on a ledge under the window as some sick prank to make us think he just suicided. He got expelled in the following week, and we had to list it to our counselor for a week about why stuff like this isn't funny and why suicide is bad. Edit. This was not the only reason he got expelled. This was just the final straw that forced the school to expel him. He was known for fooling around and pranking the teachers all the time and doing dangerous stuff like starting fire in the middle of the class and similar. One of my first years teaching, I was 23 at the time, I had a student with an extreme case of ADHD. Sometimes, when he was being too disruptive, I'd tell him to go outside and take a walk. These were 16-year-old teens, BTW. Normally, this did the trick and he'd come back a little calmer. However, one day after the kid had been gone for about 10 minutes, the class burst out in gasps and laughter. I directed my attention to the window, where I noticed Nacho slowly walking past, casually smiling and waving to everyone. Our classroom was located on the 2nd floor. He was walking along the ledge outside the window. I demanded that he come back to class immediately. After asking him how he even got up there, he pointed out where he was able to climb up. I'm surprised I didn't get fired for that, as he apparently walked past one other classroom and was seen by the other teacher. Luckily I never got reprimanded for it, and Nacho was no longer allowed to take walks during class. I can't imagine what it must be like witnessing something like that, knowing you are responsible for safety of that child. I always felt bad for teachers in my school whenever something similar happened. Must be very stressful at times. The dude's 16. Do teachers really need to be held accountable so these kids don't accidentally kill themselves doing stupid shit? They shouldn't. Fuck stupid parents. At least where I'm from, the teacher is responsible till someone is legally an adult, that is 18-year-old. Don't kill yourself, okay? 'Cause you'll die, okay? Dying's bad, okay? He made an effort to get in shape. He joined the gym workout weight training class that just happened to have a lot of the football players in it. He was constantly bullied by a few, even though the more respectable players stepped in at time it wouldn't stop. After 2 swirlies in 2 days, he brought a knife to school. Cue the 3rd swirly. He pulls a knife and they stop. Expelled. Nothing happened to the bullies. This is a weird one. Preface this by saying this kid was on borrowed time. He had a history of being a jackass but was a really funny kid. So it's early junior year and it's lunchtime. 2 people jokingly said to Kevin that they would pay him $60 to piss his pants. Money talks, and he stood up from his seat, and within moments pissed his pants. They recorded the event and the video was passed around the school. Maybe a day or 2 later he was called down to the office and was promptly expelled for whatever reason. The kicker here is that the 2 kids never paid up their money, until the disciplinarian forced them to pay Kevin instead of detention. The disciplinarian forced them to pay Kevin instead of detention. Honestly, that's pretty cool of them. There was a super senior at my high school. Each super indicates the extra year you stay at high school, so this dude was already in his 6th year of high school. I was a freshman when I met him. I was a junior at this time I'm referencing. He brings a shuriken during lunch. He demonstrates how he was learning how to throw a one. He throws it at a wall and it just bounces off and lands at a different lunch table. Fortunately, no one was harmed. Unfortunately for that dude, the people at the table got very upset and yelled loud enough to get the school security guards' attentions. Yes, we had school security guards. The next week, I hear he got expelled. I would see him again as a super senior during my senior year. The worst part is, I don't remember seeing him during graduation. I can't imagine why he didn't just drop out after his super senior year. We had a Super X3, although 1 year was held back in middle school, senior who actually managed to graduate with my class. Guy had to get special permission to stay in school after his 21st, wasn't mentally deficient for the most part, and never had behavioral problems, just didn't really do shit. I guess for people who come from single-parent very low-income households, at the very worst it's 2 free meals a day and a relatively safe place to be 6 hours a day. My school didn't cover a lot of bad areas, but there is one small section of town that isn't so nice and it picks up a few bad seeds. You have to remember that for kids or adults like this, the options are selling drugs, eventual prison, menial bullshit, $8 an hour labor, or bullshitting around in school. They may not like school, but it's better than the other options. So this guy didn't exactly get expelled, but I'm thinking this was close enough. I went to a very small regional high school in the middle of the woods, CT, with a class size of 100 on average, so we had all the farmers weirdos do, nothings you could think of. Our class didn't have too much school spirit, so we didn't do an organized senior prank. Some of the agriculture kids decided to take it upon themselves to put one together regardless, and granted these guys can be pretty stupid reckless. Anyway, a couple weeks before grad, my buddy walks into the bathroom first thing in the morning. He creaks open the stall door looking forward for a morning poop, only to find a 3 feet long snapping turtle staring back up at him. He takes a deep breath and starts to spread the news. People were surprised, but honestly not too surprised. These guys are insane like that. Turns out there was another turtle in another bathroom on the other side of school, both massive. Anyways, they get them out of there and life goes on. Didn't hear much about it after, which I was disappointed about. Being such a small school, we all knew exactly who did it. Come grad, it just so happens the guy who did it was right next to me after we got our diplomas. Sitting there looking over mine, I look over and turtle guy's diploma is, well, it wasn't a diploma. It was a picture of a snapping turtle with some turtle, pun like not so snappy, or something along those lines. The VP switched it out on him and made him go in for a meeting right after to get his actual diploma. I'll never forget the look on his face when he opened that up. Pure gold. TLDR, kid puts snapping turtles in HS bathrooms as his own senior prank. Gets a picture of a snapping turtle in place of his diploma on graduation day, but still graduates. My younger brother was that kid. He'd always been in trouble in school, and is infamous for being the only kid to ever receive an F in the history of the school district, a fact he is still oddly proud of to this day. He was expelled multiple times from separate schools, but the incident that stands out most is when he was expelled from high school. He was actually trying to be better behaved by the time he got to high school, since we were finally attending the same school for once and he didn't want any blow back on me for his own shenanigans. The problem was, his reputation preceded him, and a lot of teachers and other students would try to pick fights or otherwise catch him out on things, resulting in my brother almost constantly being in detention or suspended over petty shit. One student in particular seemed obsessed with it and tried to pick fights with my brother multiple times. Near the end of the third quarter of my brother's freshman year, the other kids spread it around school that he was going to fight my brother right after the last class got out. As a result, a large crowd of kids gathered and pushed my brother into the middle of the quad. He tried to get away multiple times, but the crowd kept dragging him back in. The other kid showed up high as a kite after getting stoned in the bathroom right before the last class of the day, and just as he was about to start the fight he noticed his shoe was untied and leaned down to tie it. My brother, wanting no part of this nonsense, kicked the other kid in the face, knocking him out cold and breaking his jaw in 2 places. The crowd started to turn on my brother, but staff arrived and broke everything up before my brother could get mobbed. My brother was arrested for battery but released without charges. Due to the circumstances, my brother was expelled the next week, yay for zero tolerance policies, and transferred up to a school in Alaska. A month after 9/11, he blew up the school bus stop there and had to be homeschooled for the rest of his senior year. The kid who picked the fight in the first place lost most of the fingers on his left hand that summer after getting high and sticking his hand into a running lawnmower. Senior guy propositioned a freshman girl and wouldn't let it go, allegedly also offering money in exchange for services about 2 weeks before graduation. He was already on super thin ice from similar creepy incidents throughout high school, including an incident where he explained a hypothetical plan to a teacher about putting GHB in smoothies and giving them to girls he liked. He was smart but seemed just completely intent of wasting all of his potential and being a piece of shit. Just decided to run his name through the county courthouse database where we grew up, and I count 5 felonies along the lines of burglary and grand theft along with a bunch of unlawful suspended license citations. Had 2 kids in my grade get expelled. One of them came back after school, got out for the day and superglued a good portion of the door locks. They were completely ruined and had to be replaced. Thousands of dollars in damage. The second kid was a well-known weed dealer. The vice principal confiscated his phone and looked through the text messages, seeing messages about drug deals. The confrontation happened in the gym locker room, and it just so happened to be right next to my locker. This kid put on a persona of a tough guy, but this vice principal was making him look like a little bitch, telling him that he's going to be expelled and that he's going to call the cops on him. This kid is just falling and then goes nose to nose with the vice principal. The vice principal puts a hand on his chest and pushes him back a little bit, and the kid swings on the vice principal. Vice principal manages to duck and tackle the kid on the ground. Funny thing is that I got the entire thing on video, and I showed 2 friends of mine the video. Within 2 hours word had spread that I got it on video, and the head principal pulled me out of class and forced me to delete it in front of him. Looking back on it, the vice principal was way out of line. He didn't have the right to look for those messages at that point in time. This was in 2007. I think laws have since changed, and he was just humiliating this kid in front of everybody. But the kid did not come back to school and the vice principal did not get in trouble. Edit. I forgot about this kid named Chris in middle school. He would bring vodka to school in a water bottle and take swigs of it periodically, and he tried to smoke pencil shavings one time. He got caught with the vodka when a teacher smelled it on his breath and consequently expelled. I'm willing to bet that that kid is either behind bars or 6 feet under. He was a really fucked up dude. I remember there was a kid in my school who had a fake eye due to having a tumor in his head as a young child. They had to remove the eye and a chunk of his brain. The part that was removed was involved in things like impulse control and judgment, and so we could never predict what sorts of things he'd do. He never did anything too bad in school, but I would not be surprised to find out that he had done something completely insane as an adult because the idea just popped into his head and he had no ability to decide not to do it. Okay, so I was sent to a private school that cost $20,000 a year. I was on lacrosse scholarship there. Anyway, there were these 2 girls. One stole her mom's credit card in order to call a taxi cab to the school in the middle of the day. They snuck out and took the cab to the airport where they tried to call a friend of mine to impersonate their father. They planned on going to Florida and staying at their family's beach house down there. They were caught by the police after successfully getting the tickets because the girl's mom realized she didn't have her card and thought her identity was being stolen. She was schizophrenic. At least that's what I think. I'm not her doctor. She used to see John Lennon, and for a long time people would just go with it because she'd always liked older music. Her taste was quite eclectic. People assumed it was just a kooky teen affectation. But things started to go from normal to quirky to unsettling over the course of a year when we were around 14 years old. In drama, she wouldn't let anybody sit in the empty seat beside her because John is sitting there. One lunchtime she threw somebody up against a wall with her hand against their throat because they told her to snap out of it, and nobody thought the John Lennon thing was cute. One time the class were walking to the locker room from the running track and she just turned around and started screaming at me and my friend for being so difficult. We weren't doing or saying anything. We weren't even really walking together, just near each other. One evening I got a phone call at home. She didn't really call me, but we were on okay terms at school. She tells me how horrible it is that they're throwing her out of school 2 days before her birthday. It was nowhere near her birthday, but she didn't come back to school. Actually, she did come back once for an athletics meet. She competed in the 100m. She carried on running at the finish line, did 2 laps of the 400m track and then just ran away. Never saw her again. My mom found her on Facebook. Apparently she's super into the church now and seems a lot more content. He had ADHD and did all kinds of shit, masturbated in the bathroom, stole keys to go up with the elevator, constantly disrupted lessons, insulted teachers, spray painted the walls in and outside, smoked weed during lunch breaks, and on top of it, almost set a teacher on fire. Truly fucked up kid. Oh wait, that was me. I went to another school where I completely changed my behavior. I'm a programmer now and everything is going well. And on BSP, edit, change the word.